Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtoto the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtoto the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Well, I'm a little warm. Still hanging on to a little bit of fall. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 21st day of October, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 13 entitled Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Text number 18, top of page 549. Jyotisham api tad jyotis tamasah paramuchyate jnanam geyam jnanagamyam vidhi sarvasya vishtitam jyotisham api tad jyotis tamasak paramuchyate Jnanam Gheyam Jnanagamyam Vidhi Sarvasya Vishtitam Jyotisham api tad jyotis Tamasak Paramuchyate Jnanam Gheyam Jnanagamyam Vidhi Sarvasya Vishtitam Jyotisham api tad jyotis Tamasak Paramuchyate Jnanam Geyam Jnanagamyam Vidisarvasya Vishtitam. Jyotisham Apitan Jyotis Tamasak Paramuchyate. Jnanam Geyam Jnanagavyam Vidisarvasya Vishtitam. Jyotisham Apitan Jyotis Tamasak Paramuchyate. Jnanam Geyam Jnanagamyam Vidisarvasya Vishtitam. Jyotisham Apitan Jyotis Tamasak Paramuchyate. Jnanam Geyam Jnanagamyam Vidisarvasya Vishtitam. Matthias. I'm assuming there's some sacred writing in that book. Shouldn't be on the floor. Maybe just your notes or something, whatever. Okay. What are the words? Jyotisham, in all luminous objects, api, also, tat, that, jyotihi, the source of light. Tamasaha, the darkness, param, beyond, uchyate, is said. Jnanam, knowledge, gyayam, to be known, jnanagamyam, to be approached by knowledge. Vidhi, in the heart, sarvasya, of everyone, vishtitam, situated. He, the Supersoul, is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge, he is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. Purport. The Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of light in all luminous objects like the sun, moon, and stars. In the Vedic literature, we find that in the spiritual kingdom there is no need of sun or moon, because the effulgence of the Supreme Lord is there. In the material world, that Brahma Jyoti, the Lord's spiritual effulgence, is covered by the Mahat Tattva, the material elements. Therefore, in the material world, we require the assistance of sun, moon, electricity, etc. for light. But in the spiritual world, there is no need of such things. It is clearly stated in the Vedic literature that because of his luminous effulgence, everything is illuminated. It is clear, therefore, that his situation is not in the material world. He is situated in the spiritual world, which is far, far away in the spiritual sky. That is confirmed in the Vedic literature. Aditya Varnam Tamasak Parastat, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. He is just like the sun, eternally luminous, but he is far, far beyond the darkness of this material world. His knowledge is transcendental. The Vedic literature confirms that Brahman is concentrated transcendental knowledge. To one who is anxious to be transferred to that spiritual world, knowledge is given by the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart. One Vedic mantra, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.18, says, Tam hadeva matma buddhi prakasham mumukshur vai sharanam aham prapadye. One must surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he at all wants liberation. As far as the goal of ultimate knowledge is concerned, it is also confirmed in the Vedic literature. Tameva viditvati mrityumeti. Only by knowing him can one surpass the boundary of birth and death. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. He is situated in everyone's heart as the Supreme Controller. The Supreme has legs and hands distributed everywhere, and this cannot be said of the individual soul. Therefore, that there are two knowers of the field of activity, the individual soul and the supersoul, must be admitted. One's hands and legs are distributed locally, but Krishna's hands and legs are distributed everywhere. This is confirmed in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.17. Sarvasya prabham ishvar... Sarvasya prabham ishanam sarvasya sharanam brihat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul, is the Prabhu, or Master, of all living entities. Therefore, he is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. So there is no denying the fact that the Supreme Supersoul and the individual soul are always different. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, that my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So just to remind us of the context, let's go back to the beginning and find Arjun's question. This is text 1. Arjun said, "My dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge." So, Krishna has answered systematically, and now he's speaking about that knower of the field, and of the knowledge, and the object of knowledge. And it turns out there are knowers of the field. Krishna says in his third chapter, Chaitra Gyam Chapimam Vidhi Sarva Chaitreshu Bharata. Chaitra Gya literally means the knower of the field. The body is the field, both the gross and subtle body. We all have a field of activity. And we are the individual soul, and we know something about that field. Not everything. And I was working in all the different details. But with the senses, both the knowledge-acquiring senses and the active senses, we're aware of what's going on in our body, and we are also aware of what's going outside through the senses of the body. As I explained last time, when we see something, we're actually seeing the effect of the light of the object on our retina. There's the nerves there. It's a whole complicated thing, how it happens. So that's part of the field, the eye, right? And when we hear something, it's the eardrum that we're actually perceiving. So in a sense, you can see how everything is being mediated through each of our bodies, this field. So that's very important to know. And then also that there's another knower within everyone's heart, the super soul. And that's being described in these verses. And we just, this text 18 is that the source of light, that the source of light is also coming from Krishna. What is that? Yasya prabhava bhavato jagadhanna koti koti shashesha vasadhari vibhuti bindam. That Yasya prabhava is Govinda. This is Govinda. Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Those Govinda prayers are very important, Brahma Samhita. So, the prabha, the effulgence that we see, whether it's the light or any light, this is ultimately coming from the body of Govinda. Yasya prabhavado jagadanda koti, and in all different countless universes, this light is illuminating. Now, when we see there's the light of the sun, there's the light of the moon, all of these are simply transmitting a little portion of that Brahmajyoti light, which is ultimately coming from Krishna's body. So this kind of understanding, first of all, is very humbling. You know, first of all, that all of our knowledge, whatever we have, remembrance and everything, is coming from the Super Soul. And there's all kinds of things, as you get older, that's, oh God, I couldn't remember this morning, it was just back in my brain. Apples, you know, I'm not an apple connoisseur, you know, over the years. Apples are very healthy for you. So, for years, I've been getting these Fuji apples. We would have Fuji right here, and from Trader Joe's, the overflow, I'd get organic Fujis right from here, I'd have to buy them, you know. And they're always my favorite. But somehow there's an apple shortage this year. I mean, I go to traders and there's no Fujis, there's no others, it's very hard to find any organic apples. But this is apple season. I mean, this is the apple season in September, October. I don't know if it's a shortage because of a harvest in the Northwest where a lot of the apples come from. Washington State but anyway, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember the name of that apple. What was that popular apple? So what did you do? Consult Google. What are the 4 most popular apples in the United States? And there's a list, and down there was, oh yeah, there was Fuji. And it has some root in Japan. I forget, it's coming from Japan. But that's what happens. You forget, you know, and we're forgetting all the time. I mean, our whole material life is one of forgetfulness. That's why we're here. If we wanted to forget, We wanted to forget Krishna because knowledge of Krishna means, oh, we're the servant, I'm the servant. But we had that desire somehow to be the master. In order to do that, we need to forget. There's several verses. Krishna, what does it say? Krishna buli se jiva bhoga bancha kari nikatasta mayatari japati adhari. Forgetting, buli means to forget. Forgetting Krishna. Krishna buli se jiva bhoga bancha kari, with the desire to enjoy. The desire to enjoy the object of the senses. That's why we forget. They go together. Then he says, as soon as we do that, Maya is standing right, nikatasta Maya. She's right nearby. And japati adhari. Just like getting tackled on the free field. They have these football games, you know. You're tackled, pulled down, and then you're under the influence, life after life, of that illusion. So Krishna consciousness is the systematic cultivation of knowledge and practice in order to reverse that process. Systematically remember Krishna. And a very important step I like to point out is this Krishna Katashtaka at the end of the Bhagavatam. Did you ever hear that before? Oh. Krishna Katashtaka. I can't give you the reference, I can give it after class. It's in the 12th canto, I think chapter 13, near the end of the book. And it's all about the centrality, the importance of remembering Krishna systematically, basically through hearing and chanting. The first word in this Krishna Katashtaka, Sankirtan. Sankirtamana Bhagavandananta Shutana Baba Vasanan Nipungsam Pravishya Chittam Vidyoti Shesham Yatata Moko Bhamavati Bhata. So when one properly hears and chants the glories of the Lord, the holy name and all, Bhagavad Gita, everything. Bhagavan Ananda Shutanubhava Vyasadam Hipungsam. Then Krishna within the heart cleanses away all kinds of anartas. You see, this is a theme. It's right there in the second chapter. It's at the end. And then it's just like Yitata Moko. And find when your heart is purified, it's just like the sun dissipating darkness. But then it says in the commentary, the verse doesn't end there. It says, Yatatamoko Brahmivati Vata. Or a strong wind blowing away a fog. Because one can think, well, there may be some cave somewhere where there's some fog is coming, it's still dark in there, so the sun may be up, but still there's darkness. Oh, there's like a powerful wind blowing away that fog, you know, so it goes on there, but then, you know, it goes back and forth. This is a way that you learn, really, is it by contrast. So oftentimes in the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, it says this is the way it is, but it could be this way. And this is the bad way. Here's the good way. You know. So then he says, half of a verse, Mishagadasta asatiya satkata nakatyateda bhagavana hokshaja. But those words, because this is all about the Krishna kathas, the sound vibration. When one hears this pure sound vibration, and then the heart becomes purified. But if one hears things other than the glorification of Krishna and Krishna katha, then that's misha, it's false. Misha katha is asatir asat katha, nakatyate bhagavan adhokshita, which doesn't have anything to do with Bhagavan. Then that's, you know, then you get, your forgetfulness is deepened. This is the essential thing is the things what we hear and what we read, and of course what we see and everything else. So then there's the 6 lines, which to me is like the epitome of the glorification of glorification. Tadeva satyam tadohaiva mangalam tadeva punyam bhagavad gunodiyam tadeva ramyam ruchidam navangdabang tadeva shaswang manaso mahotsavam tadeva shalkarna vishoshananganang yaduttama shloka yashona giyate. So those words that glorify the name, fame, and qualities of the Supreme Lord are true, the truth, tadeva satyam, tadohaiva very auspicious, tadohaiva mangalam, tadeva punyam, they automatically bring piety. This comes up right in the beginning of the Gita. Tadeva punyam bhagavad gunodiyam, that which describes the qualities of Bhagavan. And then there's this tadeva ramyam, they're also very delightful to hear. Ruchidam, full of taste. Ruchidam nabang nabang, ever fresh. Tadeva ramyam ruchidam, tadeva shosharnavam, they dry up the ocean of lamentation. Shosharam, tadeva ramyam ruchidam nabang, tadeva shashvan, eternal, shadavesham, this is it. Tadeva Shashvan. Sorry. Manaso Mahotsavam, an eternal festival for the mind. Anyway, it goes on like that. And then near the last two verses, because what happens from this constant hearing? Well, actually, then there's three verses that are quoted all the way from the first canto. Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that these three verses are like bookends, for the Bhagavatam. They're very important. So the first one is, Nayad Vishas Chitta Padang Hare Yasho, Jagat Pavitram Paganita Karjin, Tad Dvangsa Tirtam, Natu Hangsa Sevatam, Yatrachatas Tatra Hisaravo Amala. He says there, those works of literature may be very nicely composed, you see, but if they don't glorify the Supreme Lord, they are like a pilgrimage for crows. In other words, they're like a garbage heap. Shakespeare and all this other stuff. No. The swan-like devotees don't like to go there. Where the crows go. And then comes the verse, exactly the same verse that comes back in the 5th chapter of the first canto. Narada Muni speaking to Vyasadeva, encouraging him, explaining to him why he should write the Bhagavatam. Otherwise, he was dissatisfied. If you recall, if you read Bhagavatam, he wrote all the Mahabharata, he wrote all the Puranas, he wrote the Upanishads, he wrote even the Vedanta Sutra, but something was missing. He wasn't fully satisfied. So Narada Muni, his guru, could sense that. He came down and explained to him that, yes, because you have not written the most important Shastra, which deals wholly and solely with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his devotional service, and his devotees. And that's Srimad Bhagavatam. So he encouraged Vyasadeva to sit in meditation and meditate on Krishna, and everything would be revealed, and he did. But then this verse is so key, because Prabhupada, it encouraged Prabhupada to keep writing his Bhagavatam. Because if you read I don't know if you know what the Delhi Bhagavatams are? These are the ones that Prabhupada actually printed in India and brought with him. You see. They didn't have the advantage of an editor, Hayagriva or anything. So Prabhupada, even in the book, he said, well, my English isn't that great, it's a second language, so this project will surely fail. But I'm encouraged by this verse. Tad Bhagvasargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pati Shlokam Habadna Bhattipi Namanyanantasya Shonkitanyan Shinvanti Gayanti Gunanti Sarava. Those words, which are meant to bring out a revolution in this world's misdirected civilization. Even though every verse is miscomposed. So on the other side, you got the pilgrimage of crows, made up of verses, very nicely composed, Shakespeare. But there's nothing about Krishna. It's like a garbage heap. But you may write something, and your writing isn't that great, but it's all about Krishna. And then what's happened? Yasmin Padishla, but Namanyananta Seyashon Kitaniyat, but it glorifies the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Then Shinvanti, Gayanti, Gunanti Sarva. Then the sadhus, the swan-like sadhus, they will hear it, they will chant it, they will remember it and relish it, you see. So, what I'm leading up to is that at the end of this Ashtaka, I won't go through all the other verses, they're all very illuminating, but he describes, especially one verse, which describes the end point of all this hearing, which is constant remembrance of Krishna. Avismriti. I worked on this book, this 12th canto. I was the editor. And we had, Avismriti means remembrance. But then many years later, just a few years ago, I said, well, this is more than remembrance. This is no forgetfulness. This is constant remembrance. Vismriti means to forget. Avismriti means not to forget. That means you're already remembering and you're not forgetting. That's the whole idea. Because this is our problem. We remember, then we forget, the Maya comes in and we're struggling. So what's the result of this constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Krishna? Here's what the whole sum and substance of this Ashtaka. And it's right near the end of the Bhagavatam. Avismriti Krishna Padara Vindayo Chinotya Badhani Chashantanoti Sattvasya Shuddhim Padamatma Bhaktim Jnanam Cha Vijnana Viraga Yuktam. It's such an important verse. There's a wonderful biography. Some of you may notice this of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, written by Bhakti Vikas Swami. Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava. It's a big book. It's two or three big books. I forget. It took him years to write it. And there's one section in there. It's divided into sections, describing his life, then the preaching techniques or whatever. And there's a section on verses that he would quote all the time. It's very illuminating. And one of them is this verse. So he says, the constant remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna Padara Vindayo. What does it do? First thing is, Chinotya Badhani. It destroys everything inauspicious in your life. You see, everything inauspicious. And Shang Tanoti. What is this Shang? This is the root of the word Shankara, which is the name for Shiva. Shiva means he who brings auspiciousness, right? Like that. So Sham Tanoti, and expands the auspiciousness in your life. Destroys the inauspicious and makes your life very auspicious. How? Sattvasya Shuddhim. It purifies your existence. Paramatma Bhaktim. And encourages and awakens bhakti to the Supreme Soul, Krishna. It's understood, because he's mentioned in the first line. Paramatma Bhakti, which is characterized by jnanam, knowledge, vijnana, realized knowledge, the two different, and jnanam to be jnanam, viraktam yuktam, and also detachment. Those are the different things. Those are all results of bhakti. Your knowledge increases, your realization increases. And your bhakti, of course, is there, your love for Krishna is increasing, and very important, your detachment from everything else. So it all culminates in that. And there's only another, 25 verses in the whole Bhagavatam. So now where does that remembrance come from? It comes from the Super Soul, that Krishna is in our heart. The more that this is right the verse, Shinvatam Sukata Krishna, when he knows that we're hearing about him, he says, oh, he's sincerely hearing proper vibrations about me? Okay, literally the word abhadra, cleaning away, is in there. Vidunoti. Shinvatam Sukata Krishna, Punya Shavana Kirtanak, Ridyantaksto Abhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. The same idea. He's cleaning away the abhadras, those things which are blockages to our remembrance of Krishna. We've been cultivating for many, many lives. So we're getting the science here. The Super Soul is none other than Krishna. He's the source of all light, and he's also the source of all knowledge. Tamasa is darkness; it means ignorance, and he's the source of transcendental knowledge. Jnanam Gayam Ganagam. So there's knowledge. There's the object of knowledge, something that we know, and then there's the goal of knowledge. And the ultimate goal of knowledge is ultimately prema. It's to culminate in pure love for Krishna. And then whatever other knowledge we need, it comes in the train of that. We don't have to cultivate any knowledge. In the Goloka Vrindavan, the gopis aren't sitting down for Bhagavatam class, They're living it. They're like the result of Bhagavatam class. So any comments on this question? I hope I didn't get too far afield. Anyone online? Mics are up there if you need them.
Question about the copies.
The copies?
Gopis.
Oh, the gopis. Oh boy, hope I don't get it here. Okay, go ahead.
My question was, why are all the gopis women? Or
Why are they women?
yes.
Well, because they epitomize service to Krishna in the most pleasing way for him. In other words, this conjugal rasa, this is the big thing in the material world because it's a perverted reflection. That's everyone is after that, materialists. But it's the source of all kinds of misery in the material world. If nothing else, it'll just bring you back again to another material body. And without any tinge of devotional service, then you don't need a human body to engage in. Prabhupada would point out the monkeys, the pigeons. They have much more facility for sex life, and they don't have to bother about this thing of wife and everything. Wherever there's a female, especially the hogs, they'll go for it. So. But as Prabhupada introduced this term early on, and it's perverted reflection of the purest relationship in the spiritual world. And if you really want to find out about this, the science of it, read the 4th chapter of the Adi Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It describes all about the mood of the gopis. It's practically inconceivable. You know, their whole, because the supreme attitude of the bhakta is that you simply want to please Krishna as much as possible. That's your only pleasure. Nadanang, you don't really have any separate, thing that you're doing to enjoy. Your whole enjoyment is in pleasing Krishna. Then you get a body in Vrindavan, Krishna is there in Goloka Vrindavan. And Mother Yashoda is pleasing him by chastising him and, dealing with him, suckling him and so forth. The friends by just cavorting out in the field, in the games and everything. And his gopi friends, by engaging in this illicit relationship, parakiya ras. He's got his queens, in Dwarkadam, there's that kind of relationship. That's also nice, very important. But the most intense thing is this, the gopis, both the unmarried gopis and the married gopis, they all run out to the forest and they meet him there, So that's why they're ladies, because he's the Cupid, he attracts Cupid, the supreme Cupid. That's why.
That's like the nature of her soul. It's like Satchit Ananda, but it's also like a feminine soul.
Yeah. That's why we call Prakriti. That comes up in this chapter. Prakriti Purusha. Krishna is the ultimate Purusha, you see. And there's a verse coming up. I don't know if we'll get to it tonight. 22, which I always thought was like such a critical verse for understanding Prakriti and Purusha and the gunas, the three modes of nature, which will be more detailed explained in the next chapter. But how we associate with those modes of nature, that determines our fate. That determines what kind of future is, and it'll be described here. So we have agency. We have some free will. Otherwise, there'd be no point in bhakti. Bhakti means that it's freely given. And that's the idea, Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada worked so hard to give it to us. That takes you through the whole stages of devotional service, describes in pretty much detail the different rasas and examples of it. And the whole idea is that by following, and hearing the pastimes and the qualities of Krishna and his servants, then you get attracted to one variety of rasa for Krishna. And that if you pursue that, then you eventually, it's revealed to you what your original form is in the spiritual world. And that's what when you leave your body, you take that form. So that may take a few lifetimes, but hey, what's a few lifetimes? We've been through millions and trillions of them so far. All right, let's go on.
Thank you.
All right, we did 18, right? Okay. 19. Iti chetram tata jnanam Geyam choktam samasataha Mad bhakta etad vigyaya Mad bhavayo papadyate. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Purport: the Lord has described in summary the body, knowledge, and the knowable. The knowledge is of three things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowing. And combined, these are called vigyan, or the science of knowledge. Perfect knowledge can be understood by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. Others are unable to understand. The monists say that at the ultimate stage, these three items become one. But the devotees do not accept this. Knowledge and the development of knowledge mean understanding oneself in Krishna consciousness. We are being led by material consciousness, but as soon as we transfer all consciousness to Krishna's activities and realize that Krishna is everything, then we attain real knowledge. In other words, knowledge is nothing but the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. In the 15th chapter, this will be very clearly explained. Now, to summarize, one may understand that verses 6 and 7, beginning from Mahabhutani and continuing through Chaitanya Dhriti, analyze the material elements and certain manifestations of the symptoms of life. These combine to form the body or the field of activities. And verses 8 through 12, from Amanitvam through Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam, describe the process of knowledge for understanding both types of knower of the field of activities, namely the soul and the supersoul. Then verses 13 through 18, beginning from Anadi Matpadam and continuing through Vidisarvastivishtitam, describe the soul and the Supreme Lord or Super Soul. Thus, three items have been described: the field of activity, the body, the process of understanding, and both the soul and the Super Soul. It is especially described here that only the unalloyed devotees of the Lord can understand these three items clearly. So for these devotees, the Bhagavad Gita is fully useful. It is they who can attain the supreme goal, the nature of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. In other words, only devotees and not others can understand the Bhagavad Gita and derive the desired result. So it's worthwhile going over these things because some of it is kind of technical. And we had that 13 through 18, which was quite a long purport. You may remember. It goes through all these different items. But amanitvam, adambitvam, humility, pridelessness, and then janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosha anudarshanam. That one line, if you can remember, is a great impetus for devotional service. We don't want to go through birth, old age, disease, and death again and again, do we? Okay, what can I do to avoid it? You know, I mean, who out there is really thinking of that? They may be going through some of those things. Oh, I'm getting old, you know. What can I do? You know, how can I get an implant or take some pill to slow down this old age? You know, people are worrying about it like anything, but they have no idea that it's inevitable, and inevitably they're going to die, and whatever they worked for materially in this world is all going to be ripped away. Mrityu sarvahascharam. So what's the point? You know, let's think of it in terms of investment. What's the point of investing, and then inevitably you lose everything? That's a lousy investment. But if you invest the time and intelligence and life force in this science, then you get something permanent that ultimately culminates in the highest, most valuable thing that there is: eternal life of bliss and knowledge. What could be more valuable than that? Yes. In the mic.
The qualities that you just mentioned, those qualities were qualities of a devotee.
What? Amanitvam adambitvam?
Because then it's like in chapter 16 and the divine and demonic natures.
Yeah, there's a whole other list.
The godly nature.
Yeah, there are a bunch of lists like this. This specifically, this amanitvam one is said as knowledge. You say, well, how does humility have to do with the knowledge? Well, the point is, that's a gateway. You know, if knowledge, you have to be able to hear submissively, sushushro, and then you'd be humble. You know, I don't know anything. That's like Sanatana Goswami. He was such a learned sage. You know, he knew so much in different languages and everything. He was prime minister in the government. But he approached Lord Chaitanya with the straw in his teeth. That's the symbol, you know, that means complete humility. Bowing down, it says, Keami kene amai jari tapatrai. Who am I, and why am I suffering the threefold miseries? If I don't know these things, then what's the use of all my learning? You see? So then Lord Chaitanya, that opened the gate. Then Lord Chaitanya started teaching him everything. You know, so that's actually what it means to become a devotee. To like, I'm confused. I don't know, but I have faith that you know that there's really knowledge here. You know, so let me hear submissively and draw it in. And that's right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, second verse, and we'll end with this. No, not really. Dharmak projita kaita vota padamone matsaranam satam vejam vastava vastu shivadam tapatrayon moolanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikute King Vaparayat Ishvara Sadyo Ridyavarujate Chakutabi Shushushubi Tachanat. Right at the end is that key word, Shushushubi, which means submissive oral reception. That's the one definition Prabhupada gave, or ardent hearing. You know, not that, okay, let me take some notes so I can make some opposition here. No, you're just receiving the knowledge. So this verse, and I'll just go through it really quick, it's very important. Second verse of the whole Bhagavatam, 1:1-2. And it's describing a little bit how the book came to be and what the special quality of this Bhagavatam. The first thing is Dharma Projita Kaitavotra. Atra means here. Here in the Bhagavatam, we kick out all cheating dharmas, so-called dharmas. Because we know there's real dharma, Sanatana Dharma, but there's also Kaitava Dharma. There's Ku Dharma. There's fake dharmas. You see? And so in this book, we're not going to deal with any of that. You know, you may go to some other literature, whatever, you know. But Dharma, we're kicking it out. Dharma projita means throw far away. Kaitavo, Dharma projita kaitavo. Paramoni matsaranam satam vejam. This literature is understood only by those who are completely free of envy of God. You know, and matsaranam satam vejam. And what does it do with vastava vastu? Vastava vastu means the ultimate reality thing as a thing, you know. Vastava vastu. Shivadam, and this knowledge bestows all good fortune, Shivadam, and uproots the threefold miseries. Threefold miseries are miseries of their own mind, of the devas, you know, like hurricanes, and of other living entities. Tapatum, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikute. This Bhagavatam was written by the great Muni, Vyasadeva, in his maturity. His last work. King Bhaparaya. What do you need anything else? Ishvara sarva sajjodidyabarutate, that those who listen to it carefully and absorb the teaching will have the Lord manifest in their heart. What is the need of any other shastra? It quickly will be manifest. So that's just the second verse of the Bhagavatam. The whole idea is, if they get to even to the second verse, maybe they'll be induced to read further, you know. And then they're realizing, well, this is Kali Yuga. So they're not going to get through the whole book probably, these Kali Yuga. So in the second chapter, you got to go? Okay, go ahead. Second chapter, he has a whole lesson from text 6 through text 21 that gives you the whole process in summary. If they just get through that second chapter, then they can go back to Godhead. Prabhupada would speak on those verses all the time, and we made a book out of it, of his, you know, the translation, the whole thing that you find in the book, the Sanskrit, the word by word, the translation, the purport, and then excerpts appended from his lectures on that particular verse. He spoke on all of them. So if you really want a nice summary of the process of devotional service, check out the 126 through 1221. Okay. All right. I'm sorry for getting too little far afield here. That was 18, and we did 19, 20. Pakatim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Bhavapi Vikarang Chagunhangs Chaiva Vidhi Pakati Sambhavan. So this is two other subjects, Arjun, the Prakriti and Purusha. I want to know what Prakriti and Purusha is. Now he's going to go with those things. He was dealing with the field and the knowledge and the knowers of the field. And the material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Modes of matter means the modes of nature. Purport. By the knowledge given in this chapter, one can understand the body, the field of activities, and the knowers of the body, both the individual soul and the supersoul. The body is the field of activity and is composed of material nature. The individual soul that is embodied and enjoying the activities of the body. Prabhupada would use the word enjoying often to mean experiencing, because sometimes the activities of the body are causing pain, so it's not always enjoying. But the individual soul that is embodied and experiencing the activities of the body is the Purusha, or the living entity. He is one knower, and the other is the supersoul. Of course, it is to be understood that both the supersoul and the individual entity are different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity is in the category of his energy, and the supersoul is in the category of his personal expansion. Prabhupada would also call it plenary expansion. Both material nature and the living entity are eternal. That is to say that they existed before the creation. The material manifestation is from the energy of the Supreme Lord, and so also are the living entities, but the living entities are of the superior energy. Both the living entities and the material nature existed before the cosmos was manifested. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, and when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of the Mahatattva. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus, they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. But with the coming forth of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. Actually, the living entity is originally the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but due to his rebellious nature, he is conditioned within material nature. It really does not matter how these living entities or superior entities of the Supreme Lord have come in contact with material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows, however, how and why this actually took place. In the scriptures, the Lord says that those attracted by this material nature are undergoing a hard struggle for existence. But we should know it with certainty from the descriptions of these few verses that all transformations and influences of material nature by the three modes are also productions of material nature. All transformations and variety in respect to living entities are due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, living entities are all the same. So this is introducing the beginning of the explanation of the Prakriti and the Purusha. Now the Purusha means different things. In one sense, we are not Purushas. We are Prakriti. This is explained way back in the 7th chapter. We had this Bhuma, Apa, Onono, Vayu, Kangmanu, Vepacha, earth, water, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These 8 comprise my separated material energies. You see? But then he says, apare mitastvanyam. But there is another energy, anyam, which is apara. Which is para. These 8 are apara, means lower. The material energy is lower. But apare mitastvanyam prakritim viddhime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yedam dayate jagat. But there is also the para prakriti. We belong to the spiritual energy, it's higher. And comprised of the jivas, all the jivas, account as living entities. We're Prakriti. But we're Prakriti acting like Purusha, and that's our problem. We need to go back to acting like Prakriti, meaning that we're servants, rather than trying to be masters and enjoyers. So that, but here in text 20, did we just read text 20? Yeah. The living entities are referred to the Purusha. The living entities are called the Purushas. And then, let's see. All right, tomorrow we'll deal with text 22. We can read text 21. Kaya karna kartritve hetu prakrtiruchyate purushak sukhadukanam bhoktritve heturuchyate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So the word nature at the beginning of this verse means the material nature. Material nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Purport: the different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. So there you see experiences, it should be said. We don't enjoy distress. When he's put into different bodies, he experiences different kinds of happiness and distress that may have already been fixed, I think. Okay. His material happiness and distress are due to his body and not to himself as he is. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, this is his real state. But because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing. The spiritual world is pure, but in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desire. Now, the sum total, body and instrument senses, are offered by material nature. And as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters, namely the bodies. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the Supersoul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.1, as follows. Tava Suparna Soyuja Sakaya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he always accompanies the individual soul in all circumstances. And in all circumstances is present as the Supersoul or Paramatma. So, okay, it's almost time now. If we can remember, I distinctly remember this sticks out in my mind from the introduction, when I first read the introduction. And Prabhupada talks about the Supersoul. And he said, the Supersoul is aware of everything that we're doing and everything that we're thinking. We should not forget that. You see, the problem is we forget that. But if we understood that, and we understood that he's our best well-wishing friend, you see, he said, Bhoktaram Yagitapasang Sarva Loka Maheswaram Suridam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantam Richati. So Krishna says, Aham Bhoktaram Yagitapasam, I am the enjoyer of all the sacrifices and austerities. Sarva Loka Maheswaram, I am the controller of all the lokas in the world. Well, that's pretty powerful, then we should become very intimidated. But he says, no, don't worry. Suridam Sarvabhutanam. I am within everyone's heart as the best well-wishing friend eternally of everyone. You see? So that's very encouraging. And one who can realize this and has faith in it, he can actually attain peace. To know that we have God within our heart as our best friend, ready to help us to return back to Him, that's very encouraging, if we really believe it. And if we act on the basis of, so we can't hear His message because we're too shut off. We're not listening. We're too much outside. So He comes externally, as the guru or gurus, right? The Shiksha and Diksha, as the books. He's coming also as Bhagavad Gita. He comes as himself, speaks Bhagavad Gita. He inspires Vyasadeva. He's also said to be an incarnation. So we have both internally and externally this knowledge. All we have to do is accept it. We have to really take it, yes, this is really the truth, and let me learn about it and act according to the instructions, and more will be revealed from within. You were going to ask something.
Hare Krishna. So our desires determine our next body, correct?
Yeah.
What about our
desires and our activities?
And our activities, karma. What about our dominant thought at the time of death? How does that interplay with all of that?
Because that dominant thought will be very closely aligned with your desires, the most prominent desire. There's a whole dynamic that takes place there. Now, the thing of being human beings, and especially if we know the science, we'll make every effort to think of Krishna at the time of death. We'll arrange our life leading up to that so that we're surrounded by devotees, or at least we have a tape playing all the time of kirtan, and that I've seen that with many devotees. That's good fortune, be in that situation. So it's a but why wait till then? We should try to do it now so that we think of Krishna as much as possible. And even in this lifetime, we can also become very blissful and very peaceful, and also very influential in helping others become Krishna conscious. But yeah, but those who just for the ordinary person, whatever you've been thinking about and hoping, and that's the most prominent thought, that's going to take over your mind. But we know we have some control over that, and we should try to do it. Mike, give it a mic. Or then we have to adjourn.
But Krishna also says somewhere in Bhagavad Gita that at the time of death, if you don't remember me, then don't worry, because I will remember you. So how does that incorporate with all that, what you just said?
Well, the thing is that he's going to help. He's there, reminding us. But we also have free will, and that free will can manifest in, some horrible thing we regret, some offense, or whatever. And that's why the offenses are so important to know and to avoid, because what the offenses do is that they put a barrier between you and Krishna. In other words, you're not as attracted to chant. I've seen this happen. One devotee, I didn't know what he did, but he did some offense. He was right up in front of the deities, and this was in LA many years ago. But he couldn't look at the deities. He was there, but he was looking here, looking there, because he felt he had offended somehow, And then, but the real thing that happens usually that if you offend some devotee, or some serious, offend the guru or something, you don't feel comfortable amongst the devotees anymore. It's hard for you to associate. And that's really the most pleasure, the most treasure that we have. Our desire to, and our ability and our arrangement to associate with devotees. In kirtan and classes and service, that's key. So that's, all of that at the time of death, we don't want to be alone. We don't want to have a whole regret. Why did I do this? Why did I do this? I never got to see the devotee and ask for forgiveness. I had a devotee, and I'll end here now. He wrote me 2 emails exactly the same. This is a devotee who I knew in Miami back in the 80s, and he actually was coming to San Diego when I was driving a big truck. This vision was driving a truck across the whole country. All of the furniture and everything for the. So I was hoping that he would help me drive. It's a long drive, but then as soon as he took he had a license and everything, but as soon as he took the wheel, no, he's not going to. So I drove him across the country, Anyway, but he asked me, please, if there were any offenses, He says, I wrote him back, no offense, everything is okay, Anyway, all right, one quick poem. Maduram maduram babadatsi vibho maduram maduram vadanam maduram madugandhi madusmita meta baho maduram 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 maduram. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form, sweet is still his face so fair. But his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. All right, Haribol. So you're both invited tomorrow, if you can make time. We'll continue. And then we're going to read this 22, which is really a key verse. It's a very memorable verse. All right. But I think we're on 21 now.
We finished.
Did we do 21?
Yeah.
Okay. 22 is it, for sure. Oh boy. Here we go.